Hello, civilized people. Have you ever noticed that the world is changing? Changing in ways that make no sense. Beloved companies, which once made multi-billion-dollar films, now hold the ire of both shareholders and what are now former customers. Organizations which were far too big to fail are strangely failing. This pattern has been seen across the entertainment industry with film, television, and video games, all having decided to pursue a similar path, one which, time and again, has shown to be divisive among customers, reducing profits, and yet they bury their heads in the sand, saying, screw it, and keep on walking the same path, despite failure being the obvious result. And all of it comes with the stink of political correctness. So grab yourself a hot, steaming cup of African American coffee. Feel guilty for the actions of your ancestors, all the while ignoring the fact that you are probably listening to this on a computer or phone built, at least in some part, by what is essentially cheap Asian child and or slave labor. Because today, on the Goss and Rome podcast, we are going to discuss how political correctness has led to the downfall of the entertainment industry. So, Colt, how you doing today?
I'm pretty all right. How about yourself?
Pretty all right again. Pretty all right. I might pick that up at some point. I, I'm doing pretty well. So it feels very liberating. Primary season is essentially over, so we can step back from the lovely world of electoral politics, at least for you know the podcast, if not for work, and discuss some topics a bit more interesting than Orange Man and Senile Man's inevitable rise to the dominance in their respective parties. Um, I mean, we try to make it entertaining, but I think we all knew how that story ended. Um, so before we get into things, there are three. There are actually three topics we're going to look at in this, and the impact of political correctness upon them. Uh, Video games and television, we both mentioned in the intro, and one that I guess I was peripherally aware of it to a degree, but I didn't realize how quite so heavy-handed the pursuit of it was within the world of AI development, which we're also going to be discussing that as well. I mean, when we did our AI episode, we talked about how the PC mob and what was it? Yeah, the PC mob and essentially, the religious right both had, it seemed, a common cause in certain censorship. Oh,
Seems, yeah.
wow. Hardly into the episode and already having some technical difficulties. That's just lovely.
It could be our
Uh,
thing at this point.
I know it's part of our charm. We just say screw it and do it anyway. What was it? O'Reilly's tangent. I guess it's famous now. It's basically, screw it, we're doing it live.
Yeah.
Did you know that was actually filmed in Iceland? That was when he was reporting from Iceland
No, I did
back in the
not.
day. Yeah, apparently there was like all sorts of problems because it was both a language barrier and like technological incompatibility. So,
Screw it.
uh,
We're doing it live.
well, not screw it. You
Yeah.
can look up the video yourselves. It's kind of a classic. But anyway, getting back to it, yeah. Even AI has not, you know, managed to avoid the long arm of the political correctness cult.
It seems that way. I'm
And we'll get into that. The first topic, though, we're going to discuss is video games, Colton.
oh boy.
I like video games. I mean, I still remember, playing games in a time before Final Fantasy was a thing, which, I mean, I think that's kind of the gold standard. That or Mario or Legend of Zelda. One of those three seem to be the ones that people have latched onto over the years.
Damn.
Yeah, oh Lord, I mean, I've been playing video games since well before Sega had a handheld. Yeah, that was a thing. The Sega Game Gear.
I don't.
God, I
I
feel
don't even know
old.
what that is.
Then the Game Boy made Mario portable. The Game Gear made Sonic the Hedgehog portable.
Mm,
But yeah, so moving along, did you ever play Daggerfall, Colton? One of the early uh, Elder Scrolls games. I know you're a fan of
no.
the Elder Scrolls
I
franchise.
I have not, but I've watched people play it. So
So, just from my vantage point, I don't think all of the decline of things stems from what we now see as political correctness.
no.
Uh, like seriously, at some point, do yourself a favor and play it. I actually encourage people to play it just because you can see how much things have changed. Certainly, obviously, go figure, Daggerfall came what in the early 90s? I don't have that in front of me. But obviously, Skyrim prettier than Daggerfall. Who would have seen that coming? But even for the lack of graphics, it was a much more rich experience. And over the years, you've seen a lot of companies, and I hate to term it this way, but I guess it's kind of the truth. They dumb down a product to make it more accessible to a larger audience so that they can sell more copies.
I hate that so much. I hate.
I
Oh,
Yeah, I despise it. Uh, and trust me, we're going to be getting into that somewhat in these things. And it's something where, that degrades over time. And where we are going to be talking about political correctness, we're going to try and focus on, the aspects of the industry that are viewed as declining that aren't just because of that dumbing down for the mass market. Because both can, lead to a decline in product as we'll get into as we go. But, you know, one of these is something that's not just related to what could be argued to be good financial decisions.
yeah.
But so obviously the topic that's on a lot of people's minds right now in regards to, political correctness in video games is the Swing Baby Ink controversy. And have you read much of anything about it at all, Colton?
It's really weird. Like I was, so like the Steam group part of that, right? I joined
I
that when
do.
it had 5,000 members, and now it has like 200,000, and it became like a big thing, right?
Oh yeah.
So there's that I know of, and I know that the man that started that Steam group, he had all of his information leaked, whether it was by people, associated with Sweet Baby Inc. or I don't know, but I know that has happened. So I know there's been obviously a lot of buildup, but I do not know the events in between.
All right. For both you and our listeners, I'm going to give you a very rudimentary summary of what has happened. I've done a good bit of research on this. It's not something I followed passionately. Uh, I play video games, but I'm an old man. The games I play are generally not what a lot of people enjoy. So, just going to give you the rundown of this real quick. So, first off, Sweet Baby Inc. is a consulting firm which was brought in to assist on games, specifically, I guess it's storytelling and plot.
Hmm.
And they primarily focus on increasing representation and diversity, which, as we all know, are clearly the two things that every gamer is looking for when they buy games.
That is
Because
definitely.
I mean, it is far more important than a good plot, good mechanics, anything like that. You know, it is. If you could have the best mechanics in the world, you could have wonderful gameplay, fantastic graphics, but without that representation and diversity, that game's just gonna flop.
You think
You can't have
nowadays,
that.
you think nowadays that that's like a negative sales metric if a game is like advertised to have that?
Oh yeah, we're actually we're going into that. We're delving into that a bit.
Oh.
Yeah. The But following that, a Steam group was formed called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, which basically uh you know saw what Sweet Baby Inc. did, and this kind of stuff is politically divisive, right or wrong. That's your call. But got to put together essentially a list of games they had consulted on, and it didn't. It this is n- this list isn't exactly a list of great games. Let's be candid. I think the two biggest name games on it are Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, which was quite controversial,
Hmm.
and also what, Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Is that? I thought you were gonna say something like as heinous as like that Gollum game.
No, 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 no. Like, like these games had, they weren't the most highly reviewed games. They had sort of landed to middling success, all things considered.
Yeah, but
And
meh at best.
yep, meh at best. And so essentially, they published a list indicating that this company worked on that game. They indicated what that company did and basically said they don't recommend these games. For whatever reason, Sweet Baby Inc. got their panties in a wad and demanded that Steam ban the group, which caused the whole situation to blow up out of control, enter the public eye, and become actually a good bit worse for them.
If
Which, yeah.
you'd think a consulting
So
firm would have a solid PR department.
you would think they would. Like, sometimes you just ignore the bad things and they go away, especially in the business world. Like the news cycle moves very rapidly. They somehow made this newsworthy. They made if somebody is offering, if somebody is being critical of you and you don't want people to see it, just ignore it. It makes it go away. Unless you're, running for office, in which case people are spending millions of dollars to, talk shit about you. But
Just never heard of the Streisand effect.
yeah. Anyway, Steam sided with this group, Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, and allowed their list to stay up, meaning that there is now a that block of people that you said was over 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you that whenever I looked just a few minutes ago, actually, it was over a quarter million.
That's pretty big.
Uh, and they have basically jumped on the bandwagon of calling out their products, not liking what they sell. Presumably, maybe some of them in there love Sweet Baby Ink, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I want to buy that." Hell if I know. But I have to assume, given all the ongoing backlash, it is probably mostly people that are, opposed.
It's
And
funny.
since
It's so
and
funny.
since
Go ahead.
I like the sheer stupidity in how this was handled is spectacular. But since this, people have started investigating, and it appears that Sweet Baby Inc. was intending to weaponize, quote unquote, cancel culture against companies that didn't meet their standards for inclusivity and diversity. So essentially, the rundown is that this company would reach out to developers about their products and say, hey, your product isn't meeting, you know, modern diversity and inclusivity standards, and your product is going to get social backlash if you don't fix it. Also, you can hire us to fix it.
That's like bullying, isn't it? That's just straight up. And
I
I
don't
they tried to
know.
do the same thing. They tried to use cancel culture on Steam.
Yep. Weaponized cancel culture. Go figure. And cancel culture is something, whenever we talk about, why companies are doing this at the end, is something I think we'll have to get in as a causation because, I mean, it's very much a real thing at this point. So, yeah, I've not been, following it terribly heavily, but that's my understanding. And so, for those of you just wanting to keep up on that, that's sort of what's going on. But I really do think it highlights, better really than anything, just how significant a role cancel culture plays in company decision making.
Can I add
Like,
on to this,
please,
or just ask a
please.
question? In this, I guess. I this is just my own opinion in the form of a question. Why are companies scared about what people on Twitter say? And these people largely probably won't buy their product even if it's good, like even if it's good in their eyes anyways.
Yeah, I honestly do not know. I do not know. It is, like I said, there is a lot of stupidity going on here.
Yeah.
Like, the phrase corporate suicide comes to mind.
Seems apt.
So, so yeah, that's basically just to highlight the case with Sweet Baby Inc. because it's just all over the place now. But you know, there are cases in video games where I think we've both seen examples of political correctness, and I'm going to start with a few of mine that I've seen. I am an old man. I play old man games,
Hmm.
so you know, I know we both play games from Paradox, and in recent times, those games have sort of fallen off a cliff.
Well, if you played the
Uh,
older games, yeah. If you're just nowadays, Paradox games are popular because of YouTubers that do meme challenge runs. It's
yeah, kind of.
it seems like that's you know the biggest source of who they're targeting nowadays.
Yeah, And obviously, these are fairly complex games. These are games that have a pretty steep learning curve. I'd say of the current generation, exclude of the last generation and the games that are still the newest of that, probably EU4 was the most accessible Europa Universalis. And
Hmm, I
I'd
think
say
that's
that was more
subjective.
accessible. Maybe.
I would say that Crusader Kings 2 was the most accessible out of that generation.
Uh, I guess.
You just had to
Crusader
learn the
Kings 2
menus,
just had,
that's it.
yeah. But given how we're talking about this, suffice to say, this isn't, Super Mario, classic Super Mario Brothers or Jumpman. Uh, there are a lot of mechanics to it, and it makes for a very, the classic games make for a very rich grand strategy experience. But the mechanics, again, are not what we're talking about. Those, we've seen those degrade over time to become more simplistic. I mean, if you've never played it before, go play Victoria 2. It really is a classic. And then compare that to Victoria 3, which is essentially quick button to win.
Green line go up.
Green line go up. Stonks. So anyway, in the regards to political correctness, like these games, what made me love them is the fact that they are quite historically accurate. But I'm just going to cite two examples, and one of them is confusing, and the other one is just funny. Victoria 3, this is a game, set during the Victorian period. And as you are probably aware, there was a certain event in the United States during that period. It's known as the American Civil War. And these games have, unique national mechanics. And obviously, one of the playable nations in this is the Confederate States of America. And, I have to give them some credit on this, as they clearly did some quite a bit of research, considering, this is a company out of Scandinavia. As far as, like, depending on how you play the game, that nation may emerge earlier or later, meaning that you would have different states that could possibly join the rebellion. Like, there are a number of things that, like, a number of states that people don't really think about whenever they think of that event historically, but, were sympathetic to the Confederacy, which were Arizona, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. But they also, and credit where it's due, also included that the states of Delaware, Missouri, and Kentucky could also secede, as well as DC actually seceding from the United States because slavery was allowed there as well. And they also included Maryland, which for some reason nobody seems to remember actually seceded anymore, which is kind of funny. But so they got that bit right. But the game generally gives flavor to any nation that, is present or can form over the course of that game. But they completely failed to do that with the CSA. A nation which, if it emerges, starts as one of, the more influential countries in the world because of all of its exports. If it does succeed in the war, which just does not make sense. And the only thing I can point to is that that probably had something to do with the fact that they didn't really want to go into it all that deeply, just because of, the modern perception of the Confederacy. Now, the one that I find absolutely hilarious is in Crusader Kings 3. Any nation, you can actually go back through the list of their historical rulers, and it shows you, you know, when they were alive, how long they ruled, a little bit about them. And as you may or may not know, um, Rome never really had a female ruler. But for some reason, they made Elagabalus, who I believe ruled in the 220s. What, 220s to 240s, I think.
I wouldn't know offhand.
But they made him a woman. Yeah. Now, to be fair, by the standards of the time, he was unequivocally a sexual deviant. He was a priest who became emperor, and the man would basically sleep with anyone. And he was not terribly popular. He issued an edict removing Jupiter as the high god of the Roman pantheon. Uh, and, then following that, there were a lot of, obviously, post mortem, because he would have probably had you killed if you said it in his life. There were a lot of stories that came out about him that are of very questionable legitimacy. Now, certainly, n- again, during by the standards of his time, the man was certainly a sexual deviant. Um, he had a he well, let's just say that with him, love knew no gender, and I'm not sure it was entirely love so much as just lust. But what this move seems to stem from is that from very pseudo historical sources, people claim that he identified as a woman. Now, I'm pretty sure that given the standards of the time, that probably would have gotten him, stabbed violently in the streets. Not to put too fine of a point on it. Uh I mean, the stories about him are kind of hysterical. They say, he would sneak out at night and work as a prostitute. Like, a ton of this stuff is just outlandish. But they seem to have, decided, yep, that's history now. And I don't see there is no logical explanation for it outside of catering to that, you know, diversity and inclusivity crowd, even when it's talking about something where diversity and inclusivity were not there. Do you see any reason otherwise why they would have done that?
No, I mean, unless it was just a pet project by one of the devs that was identified with one of those identities or groups,
Yeah, but for something that prides itself on being historically accurate.
or at least historically plausible.
Yeah, yeah. The moment that was a thing, I mean, sh- Roman emperors were notoriously not
Slandered
all,
after
but
their deaths.
many, well, slandered after their deaths. Well, who name one world leader who isn't slandered after their deaths?
Shinzo Abe. He was martyred.
I stand correctly. I stand corrected. Uh, but yeah, like in that time period, like it seems like, and this is something we're going to go in further because you see this in a lot of historical stuff now, where it's like creative liberties are taken to very illogical extremes. Now, on your end, what comes to mind for you among games?
This one hasn't come out yet, but it's been pretty controversial lately. I don't know how many of our listeners play sports games, but the newest upcoming baseball game is the only change coming to the single player, like be a player mode, for the last 3 years. This is the only change that's coming, is that now there's going to be a storyline of being the first woman in the MLB.
Oh,
Yeah, people are not
okay.
very excited about that.
Yeah, I have to assume that the majority of sports game players are probably male. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I'll be generous and say 75% to 80% are men.
Yeah, like that. I have honestly, I mean, I've known a lot of women that play games, but I don't think I've ever known one that was like, "Oh, I'm going to go home and play MLB." So yeah, that actually the whole bringing up the women thing is another one. I know you've mentioned it before, but it's like, and I keep reading about this, and I don't play a lot of modern games, I guess, but like the seeming reluctance to have like a genuinely like idealically attractive woman in a game.
Yeah,
That's something I've seen come up.
that's gone away, definitely.
Like do you know of it, like examples of that? Like I
Of them going away, like previous ones or like new ones?
like new ones where it's like this is made, intentionally non-idealized while they, still keep the men the same.
Anything Tekken. There was I think a little bit of a controversy in the Mortal Kombat recent one, like the silver haired chick with the purple outfit. I don't know her name. It was Sindel or
Uh,
something.
yes, yes.
There was
It's been
that.
years since I played Mortal Kombat.
One of the bigger ones that's just funny and it's just memed on now is the announcement for the new Fable game, and like the woman on the poster is notoriously bad looking.
Yeah, it's like what the hell? I
This will
mean,
surely sell our game.
this will sell our game. I mean, maybe it's just me,
Hmm.
but I mean, just from seeing how Dennis Hoff, who he was a brothel owner who was running for office in Nevada, had the working girls from the bordello knocking doors for him. It appears as if sex sells. So I don't understand why you know people are kind of giving up on something that sells a product.
Well, I know I've seen a lot of articles. I didn't like give them clicks because it's a bullshit claim, but it'll be like a picture of like an old game, like Tomb Raider, like old Tomb Raider or some shit, right? And then
Hmm.
like one of the for the modern audience, screen caps, and then it'll be like gaming needs to mature, like opinion article. That's number 2500.
Yeah. You know, Lord, I remember Tomb Raider being a thing, but I have no recollection of the game itself.
Really?
Really, yeah, I never played Tomb Raider.
You know what's crazy? They actually just like 2 weeks ago released like re-released remastered the first three Tomb Raider games where they're like pure platforming games.
Oh,
I played
really?
those in my childhood.
And yeah, I guess I'm kind of a boring gamer.
Nah, it's fine.
But yeah, like in this case, I mean, what what is the possible motivation for something that is definitely a form of escapism to be made, more like the real world?
I
What is the motivation?
I don't know the motivation, but just to curb any, you know, response of like think about the women, right?
Yeah.
I play MMO games, and for those people that don't know, those are like nerdy games like World of Warcraft, right? But the thing is though, is that those games, MMOs, have the highest amount, like by percentage of women that play games in out of any genre. It's like 50-50 almost.
Yeah.
And I've like been in charge of groups where there have been women in it, and women make characters that are cute women. Like it's not, like they don't make male characters usually. Or, I mean, some do, but it
I mean, the men make women characters.
yeah, everybody does pretty much, but
MMORPG stands for many men online role playing girls.
exactly.
So,
But the
so
thing
you
is
know,
though is that outside of the joke, there's lots of women that play these games and they make women characters like attractive women characters.
mhm.
So the argument that it's like for them and like for representation, it's a weird argument that kind of falls on its face, don't you think?
It is bizarre. Um, like, I mean, who is the is there actually a group asking for, please give us uglier characters?
I, I don't know. I've never seen it. I'm sure someone out there is just happy that this is happening. Dude,
I
we could
mean,
do a whole episode on the changes that Blizzard has made to World of Warcraft,
yeah,
like for this crowd that doesn't play the game.
it's so bizarre. It is really, really bizarre. And then when we're going to come back to this, but then when people complain about this stuff, what do the companies do?
Call him a
They
bigot.
claim they call them a bigot, or the whatever bad thing you can be of the day.
Yeah.
And it's all really kind of silly. It's I simply do not understand who is I don't understand the market that is designed for. I I have to assume that it's something, be more inclusive to women, but I don't get it. I do not get how,
I mean, I'm gonna
the
use the new word that everybody seems to use, shitification. I mean, you could even see
what?
yeah, it's you just shitify a product, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's even going harder than what they're doing just by, dumbing down mechanics and making a more bland cookie clicker style experience for games.
reminds me of Wizards of the Coast.
Y- It does. It does. Uh Next up, this is one where you know far more than I do.
Okay.
So I've gotten some notes and I'm going to ask you a few questions because it appears like, even AI and image generation is on the verge of getting a lovely politically correct makeover. So, Microsoft, Intel, and I guess to a lesser degree, Elon Musk, though I'm not sure what role he plays in this, have recently made efforts to buy influence within formerly open source AI developers, such as Stability AI and Mixtral AI.
Mm.
And could you summarize how exactly those groups have, you know, made use of this newfound influence?
Well, it seems that every time that I'd like to first clarify, they're not like buying onto the board or anything, right? It's usually just large sums of cash that are just donated, right? But it seems
Yeah.
that afterwards, every kind of company that receives that money, uh, then champions the cause of AI ethics and safety, which just
Ah,
means
yes.
censorship.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, over the years there has been a lot of. Again, you know more about AI development than I do, and over recent years, particularly among the right political wing, and specifically within social media, censorship has been a big talking point. And I don't want to delve into the weeds, but some of those claims of censorship have, to varying degrees, been proven to be true.
Hmm.
Uh, and in this case, obviously, political correctness, you know, I mean, it's in the name, political. But do you think there's any political game slant in what they are doing, like for essentially, courting political influence?
I don't know about political influence, but I will certainly say that Silicon Valley's own biases are very present in some of the models, if you get what I'm saying. Um,
Yep.
and like I said,
Google AI.
yeah, that I was just gonna bring that up. Like, I don't think it's political outright. I think it's obviously their own biases, like like the Google thing you just said, um, or you could ask Bing's AI or whatever, and you'll see that you're more likely to get a left answer, and that's whatever. That's fine. I'm used to that with every search engine, right?
Yeah, at this point, that's a given.
But I
Although
think, oh, go ahead.
I swear I cannot get over the Google AI thing where somebody asked for a picture of a 1943 German soldier, and you wound up with very very diverse Nazis.
Yes.
Yeah, uh, the Wehrmacht has never been more diverse. Thank you, Google.
But it, I think, I don't, So I think that with AI specifically, rather than it being political censorship, I think it's weirdly like more prudish. I don't like,
So it's like coming from the same place that like the religious right comes from.
but from a totally different direction, but it ends at the same result. It's like the
Yes.
same thing we just talked about with like you can't have attractive women in video games. It's like that, but like taken to like 12 with AI.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get a response. It's like, have you seen all these AI generated images of X? You know, and it's like perfect example. Recently, Taylor Swift, right?
Oh, where it's like fake
Yeah, deep fakes,
nude
I think they're
images.
called. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. But what we're going to bring into this that I think Robert's going to bring up next is like the brand new stuff that I think literally came out a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago. Like people can't even use it yet without being invited by the team. They took
Yeah.
out all of the anything you can do smut related out of that.
So, oh boy, AI smut, because there wasn't enough of that on the internet. I mean, clearly. I mean, how do you even find that?
Well, it's everywhere. I think it's more
But
common than real people smut at this point.
but yeah. So going into that, um, I guess it was stable AI's
Yeah,
previous
stability.
models. Yep, stability AI's previous models, SD 1.5 and SDXL.
Hmm.
Uh, Apparently, the most commonly used image generation AI by hobbyists and people doing this commercially. Um, well, image generation as hobbyists and commercially. And so, could you give a little more detail on what exactly has changed in those? Like, other than, just smut?
I mean, yes, that is by far probably what has the community the most up in arms because I think we said it last AI episode is that once you take things out of the training data, it just becomes dumber, right?
Yeah,
So I that's taking things out of the training data is always controversial, always. The biggest thing with the new AI coming out by Stability AI, it's SD3 is what it's called, is that it is a natural language prompter. So it's like if you use Bing's image thing where you just describe something and then it spits it back out at you and it's fairly accurate. That's how like that's what the new one's gonna be for Stability AI. Previously, what it was for Stability AI and like how I get our video thumbnails is you'd have to like describe it by tags like piecemeal. Like I'm just gonna describe our current thumbnail like a two men, comma using laptops, comma blonde hair, comma red hair, comma like that and so on to get the whole image, right?
yeah,
So it's obviously making a big jump for open source to be able to use natural language rather than tags.
yeah. But at the same point in time, they also made it dumber in the
Yes.
process.
And like it still looks good, like it's trained off of a lot more selective images, right?
Yeah,
But you're missing a lot of stuff there. So like right now, every kind of preview image they've showed is like a woman standing in New York City waving at a cab, you know? And it's like, okay, all of these are front shots of people. Like do something more crazy, right?
yeah. So somewhat limited. I am curious. Obviously, if depending on what they are removing to, essentially remove the smut stuff,
Hmm.
is has that had an impact on the anatomy when, drawing people?
Yes.
And I'm not talking like physicality broadly.
Yeah,
How
like
exactly or
proportions are
what?
bad. Proportions like way out of whack. That's how you get like the hand issue like people joke about like AI hands. That, And there's a
Yeah,
reason that artists, do like drawings of like a nude model. You need to know anatomy to be able to draw a human.
yes. Proportions, and yeah, it makes sense. I mean, there are plenty of nude paintings that are not smut.
Yes.
Mm, I have to assume that, most art schools still require people to, as part of training, to learn to draw the human form,
Yeah,
and
I
that
mean, I would
usually involves
assume.
the nude model. I mean, that's just part of the skills needed to do the job, really.
Yeah.
At least if you're doing anything classical, not the modern art that looks like somebody took a hacksaw into a junkyard and then together. I'm
Oh,
sorry to all you modern artists out there, but no, I will not be buying your work.
I'm not big brained enough to understand your motives. To me, it's just a bolted down toilet.
Yes. I don't care about the emotion when you dumped a paint can on a canvas. That looks like an accident, not an art.
Anyways, enough shitting on modern art.
Enough shitting on modern art. So how is the you know AI hobbyist community reacted to these changes?
There's a big schism happening of people that are pissed off, and then people that are just going like, I don't know. I mean, whatever. You know, those people
Uh,
that just take everything that a company does.
yeah, I mean, go- so are we looking at the we're looking at like the great schism levels where Constantinople and Rome are going their separate ways, and they're not going to take communion together anymore, or are we like how bad is this,
I
and
mean,
how
that's
enduring is
that's.
something like this?
I think as far as enduring wise, I think people are just gonna stick with the past stuff that they've had, at this point now years to train things off of, right?
Yeah.
And to customize it themselves. I think SD 1.5 like was fully released as a leak. So it didn't even
Huh.
like get a chance to be censored.
Yeah.
Which is weirdly common in the AI world. Like some employee just goes like, "Yeah, I don't think that should happen," then just releases it early, like by themselves.
Yeah. What about people using this for commercial purposes? Has there been
That's
any
actually
indication
a
of
funny
oh,
question. So, um, right now, even though it's against their terms of service to use it for commercial purposes, a lot of people have, right? A lot of people and businesses have,
somebody broke the law?
right? But
They
I'm
think
assuming they're
so.
probably doing this in an attempt to try and make money off of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially because like payment processors like Visa, who can like controls the entire world of like what's you can say or do on the internet, like does not like
Kind of.
anything that is even remotely related to smut.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about, so yeah, I was referring to the people that used AI for commercial purposes and what their thoughts were on the changes,
Oh, they'll
not
probably
necessarily.
just well,
Even
I'm
if even
assuming they'll
even if
probably just use whatever best suits their purposes. Like, and I mean that in the way that like if you're not someone trying to bootleg sell images on Twitter, if you catch my drift, then like you'll just use the
yes.
newest one and like hopefully it'll be better for like generating the background of your real estate picture or something.
Yeah,
But everyone
that
else will
makes
probably just stick with the uncensored models.
yeah. So old tech better than new tech. We're getting I mean, while it's easy to dumb this down to just being less smut, this seems like a case of here, have an inferior product because it doesn't know anatomy anymore. And it
It's
can't draw you smut, but it can't draw an accurate, human form either.
it I think it'd be more apt to even describe it as a product that does less than its predecessor.
Yes.
Like you can
That
simplify
makes
it to
sense.
smut, but it's literally like it just does less out of the box.
Yeah. The, this seems like a case where, I don't understand the motivation in this outside of, some kind of social or political pressure.
Yeah, you would think
Maybe
that
economic.
ma- I mean, all of these AI companies at least are all nonprofits.
Yes. So just to give our listeners some insight on this, nonprofits, you can think of them as being, oh, these do good for this group or that group, or they help benefit people. And, there's a case to be made. But the nuts and bolts of it is that nonprofits are basically corporations. Uh, the only difference is that instead of investors, they have donors, and they have to appeal to those donors above all else, otherwise they go under. So that's something to think about in this too. Um, so I mean, I guess it could be, going back to how companies are buying share, well, not buying shares, but donating considerable amounts. It could be a case of, hey, they're going to keep giving us money. Let's just do what they say so we keep getting paychecks.
Yeah, and also just for more context, especially in the AI like development world, this is like the top of the line like computer science jobs. These are the guys that if you're there and you're a valuable employee, you're making like 350 grand a year and you're not even a manager.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories that people that do recruiting for these kinds of firms, you have, what in a lot of recruiting jobs would be, meh or slightly below average years, and you'll retire in 10 years by, sniping the right people.
Hmm.
So these are not, Bob from where the hell ever college that just graduated that, learned a bit of programming.
No, this is
Uh,
top of the
the,
line.
the, these are the leaders in the field until they're replaced by AI. I'm curious if AI is making AI, does that mean that they are capable of reproduction and are a step closer to being considered a life form? Food for thought.
No, just because they're not alive. That makes sense.
Yeah, but life as we know it, life as we know it.
I mean, I guess that all changes, if we ever meet aliens, right? Some other not like a non-carbon based life form, and you're like, huh,
Huh. Well, look at that.
all right, you do exist. We might have to reclassify some things.
Yeah, but I guess this is another case of, you know, in this case, it seems I what was it you said earlier? Prudishness,
Yeah.
where you have like, and I don't mean to generalize in this, but you have the push that came from like, you know, the religious right back in the 80s and 90s with, you know, no smut, no what the hell ever. And now you've got it with the prudish ideologies of the left. And it seems like it's collectively just making things worse.
It's just weird. It's weird. We live in weird times.
We do. Are there any other examples you can point to within the industry that really stand out, or is that the big one currently?
Um, I mean, I can give kind of an opposite result if you think that's interesting. Like a company that has fully uncensored, they don't care what you do or generate, and they have a vastly small. They don't have any donors. They're a for-profit company, right?
Is it Facebook?
No,
Oh,
it's just it is a small indie studio, mom and pop AI
mom and
vendor.
pop AI.
Um,
Uh, just so you know, if you want to start your own personal mom and pop AI development company, it's probably going to cost you about 10 figures. So, mo- keep in mind that all of our listeners, uh, that, don't, plan to go sell the farm and,
start an AI farm. Start
start
a
an
server
AI
farm.
company, start your own server farm because, you better have one hell of a farm.
So
And what you're growing there is probably not legal if it has that much value.
there's a there's a company, they're for profit, right? And basically what they do, or what they did to start out with, is they trained off of already trained models. It's called fine tuning, right?
Yeah.
And they, basically tried to remove all the dumb shit that we were just talking about, and they released it to their user base. They're like, it's a language model, like a asking Bing stuff, but it's not instruct. It's like supposed to be like you can write stories with it, like a D&D adventure or something, or a novel,
Yeah.
right? It's that, and then they have an image generation side, and they're using the previous uncensored SDXL model, right?
Yeah.
So they have both. Small company, like it was started by one dude from 4chan that got angry that OpenAI censored it. Like that's how small it is.
You know, I wonder how many projects like this start with just some dude from 4chan.
Probably a lot. More than we think, anyways. But the point is, though, is that now it is less than 100 employees still, but they have a bank account of around $30 million, and they've been given their own server cluster by a rich patron to train their own models.
Is there any is do we know who that rich patron is?
No, but it's probably some dude that wanted smut.
Must really want smut.
And again, to say how expensive that kind of stuff is that they're renting like a server room at Anthropic AI, like or Anthropic the the server cluster, right? They have their own room in the building. They don't have their own building.
Mm. Oh, and just to touch back on the selling the farm thing, just did some quick calculations based on current pricing. And you can, in fact, sell the farm to buy a server cluster if your farm happens to be 87 square miles and in the state of California.
Oh, well, there
Just
you
saying.
go.
So, to all of you folks listening who happen to own 87 square mile farms, please, by all means, throw your hat into the AI ring. Yeah,
But go ahead.
yeah, it was kind of funny. I basically had to do that. I had to go with California to make it work,
Some of the most
just
expensive
because.
land.
Yeah, farmland there is like $18,000 an acre on average.
Ouch.
Yeah. Meanwhile, go to Kansas, it's like 2,500. But enough on selling farms to start your mom and pop AI business. Now we probably got to go to the one that's you probably see the most backlash against, and that is the film industry and television. And I don't want to go into Disney, as while it has become something of a poster child for decline in recent years, honestly, Disney warrants its own episode. There is so much there to unpack because there is also the likely probability of very real political motivations. Um, the CEO, Bob Iger, was actually intending to run for the office of president. Maybe he still entertains that. So there is much more to that story under those circumstances than what a lot of people would think, I believe. So I don't really want to dive into that too much.
Hmm.
But within the film industry, and I guess to an extent the television industry in recent years, we've sort of started seeing a repeated pattern. You take a franchise, you add a strong independent woman as the leading figure, you add a racially diverse cast, give the writers an abundance of creative liberty to, diverge from the source material. You make a white guy the villain, and what do you get when you mix all that together, Colton?
Uh, a box office failure.
Yes, that is exactly right. And what I find is kind of funny is that this wasn't really always the case. Um, I mean, my favorite, well, two of my favorite movies of all times are Alien and Alien. I know you know that. Uh, there are two kinds of people in this world: people that like Alien, and people that you don't let your children around because they're horrible people. Like that. That's just the rule. I'm joking, obviously, but I really love that movie. Well, those movies. But I mean, that was a franchise that you know had a strong, independent woman as a lead, had a racially diverse cast. The second movie, you know, very much differed in what the first movie was. And hell, it could be argued to have been better. And, while everybody, you know, going into it after the first movie thought, oh, the alien is the villain. No, actually, the white guy, the white corporate guy who was the villain. And that wasn't a flaw. And yet now, whenever you see this, it seems like a guaranteed failure. So I'm curious, what do you think has changed?
Well, obviously, Alien was a great movie. So,
Yeah, you better say that.
but it wasn't focusing on, quote unquote, the message. It was just a good movie that happened to have a female lead and a diverse cast.
Yes.
There was no message. It was the movie Alien.
I mean, yeah, it was a great film. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go watch Alien after we finish recording. Yeah, it feels like that was a good film that had those things versus taking those things and trying to make a film from it. Is that make any sense to you?
A little bit. Maybe expand upon that.
Like, you know, the film would have been good. The first film would have been good if you replaced, you know, Sigourney Weaver with a man. That would have still been a good film.
Hmm.
Uh, if it was, not a diverse cast, it would have been a good film. In the second movie, even if they had done the aliens somewhat differently, how they had all the like they portrayed their life cycle through the queen differently, that could have still been a good film. It was well written, it was well shot, kept with the it was distinct, but it kept in line with the original. And whether that villain was white, black, Asian, or I don't know, a freaking gray alien, it would have still worked.
Hmm.
It didn't rely on those things to make it good. It was just good and it had those things. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
So, in comparison to nowadays stuff, they just can't write good story. I mean, everything nowadays is a remake or a remaster, anyways.
Yeah, it's Lord. I read somewhere that this year in the theaters, you are getting, I think it's 50 films that are either remakes or sequels that are coming out. That is, and it's like more than half the films this year. That major films from major studios that are going to be released in the US.
That's boring.
Which, yeah, I mean, I get it. Humanity is not exactly the most creative. I mean, The Chinese were on their own out in the East, and what did they do? They create a dragon. Europe, good distance away, most European, I guess it was probably, I mean, even going back to Rome, they had dragons and represented in mythology. Yeah, they created the same damn thing. Go to the New World, Mayans, Aztecs. What do you got? Yep, that's right. Dragons. Going to give this, big scaly thing with sharp teeth wings, and it flies around and it's poisonous or it breathes fire or whatever.
Now hang
Like,
on there,
you,
Robert. Maybe it's just a fundamental human truth that large lizards are cool, just like farts are funny.
personally, on that, I've always thought that it was, kind of the combination of all the things that, primordial man feared, like big, predatory animals, poisonous snakes, like big birds of prey from the time, like before man became modern man. And so that's where I've always thought that it came from. But it's just kind of funny that, all of these peoples across the entire world that were completely unconnected sort of came up with the same thing.
I prefer my theory.
Big big lizards are cool.
That's right.
Yeah.
People saw
So,
a snake or a lizard and like, imagine if that thing was as big as our house.
yeah, that'd be pretty dope.
Right?
Yeah, maybe it'll eat me. Well, I bet this thing would look great breathing fire.
Right?
Maybe somebody got bored and threw a lizard and they're like, "You know what? I can market this." But speaking of marketing, do you do you think that these failures are in part caused by marketing? By which I mean, if a film or any product is marketed to you based upon race, gender, sexual orientation, whatever categorization you like, uh, instead of quality and value, do you think that's a poor decision?
Yeah, I mean, I could see the value of doing something by like targeted advertisement group, but I think in general you should just have a good product and then see that people want to use it or buy it or see it.
Because I mean, what comes to mind for me is that, I mean, artists can be difficult people, and you know, an artist can say this is my masterpiece, and nobody wants to buy it.
Hmm.
They can sing the praises of it. A an auctioneer can sing the praises of it, but at the end of the day, unless it's an investor, if people don't like it, they're not going to buy it. Or if it's not entertaining, which is the job of a film, they aren't going to pay to go see it. And at this point, uh, I think that like I'm just going to throw out garbage bags into the mix here.
Okay.
Whenever you go to the store to buy garbage bags, are you thinking, I wonder what the race or race of the guy who, made this garbage bag is? Or, oh, I wonder, did a gay guy make this garbage bag? Is that what comes to your mind, or are you looking for a functional garbage bag?
I just grab the first box I see as long as it's big enough.
Yeah, pretty much, provided it does the job. And in some ways, I think that, the film and television industry are kind of shooting themselves in the foot by continuously following the well-known franchise, strong independent woman, racially diverse cast, uh, reimagining of a franchise with a white guy as a villain, just because at this point, I don't think people actually trust it. I think they've, gotten burned so many times going to see this kind of stuff. That It's like, well, why the hell am I going to bother with that? I think some of the failure has to fall at the feet of marketing.
I think it's like all the
I,
writing departments. I think they're just.
well, I think the writing department has their flaws. Uh,
I mean,
I
what
don't
else
think
can the
they're so.
marketing department do except for talk about what they have? You know?
If we can't say the movie's good, we're going to talk about the cast.
Yeah, that's all they got, man.
It's a movie.
In a
It's the most
world,
movie of the year. Franchise 6, The Reimagining.
one of the films of the year.
Yes. So going back to what I was talking about earlier though with like the historical changes to things. This is incredibly prevalent in film and television. It is painfully prevalent. And I'm going to throw two examples out. And the History Channel show, I think it was History Channel show, Vikings, to say the least, it is not historically accurate, but it at least played at being historically accurate. Like they made like that show like claimed that Rollo, who founded Normandy, and Ragnar Lodbrok were siblings. If so, Rollo is the longest lived person
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, they
in
weren't even alive in
history.
the same like era.
Yeah, like Rollo was Rollo would have been like he would have lived like 200 years. Like their children probably didn't even like Ragnar's children probably didn't live long enough to be alive while Rollo was alive,
This is also if Ragnar was actually a real person.
and not a collection of people. I mean, the guy was a lot of. I hate to break it to people, but Ragnar Lodbrok might not be one person. He might be a plurality of people. Uh,
Is it the
a
Viking
lot,
version of claiming that they're all Spartacus?
kind of, except that in this case, it was that they just sort of would merge stories together to make them more exciting. Like, honestly, it's kind of incredible some of the things that the Scandinavian sagas claim. You know what, like fighting after you've been shot with 100 arrows, and walking after you've been shot by 100 arrows. Would they all hit? Like they all glance your shoulder or something?
Certainly didn't
Like
take an arrow in the knee.
he did not.
Would
Uh, that would have ended their adventuring career pretty quickly.
have had to stay home in the barracks.
Yeah, but you know, going back to it, they at least played at it. But apparently, they did a spin-off show that portrayed Jarl Hakon as a black woman.
A black woman?
Yes, and I mean, first off, this is outlandish for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is that Hakon is a man's name. It's like, having a daughter and naming her Butch.
Michael?
It's like, yeah, that makes no sense. And also, despite what Google AI has recently indicated and what some pseudo historians claim, I hate to break it to people, but you know, 900s Scandinavia was pretty culturally and ethnically homogenous. Well, not all of Scandinavia. You had the Finns, but the Sumi, the Sumi.
I thought you were saying sue me.
No, 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 no.
That
The
was a
people,
clever
the
pun.
Sumi.
Yeah, I know. That could have been a clever pun.
I know. But I mean, it's something where it's very much immersion breaking. Next up, and in probably the most infamous example, Netflix's show Cleopatra. It claimed to be historically accurate.
It claimed to be a documentary, didn't it?
It essentially claimed to be a documentary. And it again had a black woman, and she was playing Cleopatra. Now, some people will say this is up to debate. Some people are also idiots.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
certainly not
and
up to date.
those people know nothing about history, apparently, because believe it or not, the Greeks conquered a lot of places. She wasn't even Egyptian. Um, her father was Greek. His father was Greek. And his father was Greek, going back a very long way.
Until Alexander the Great, like they were, he's one of Alexander the
Yeah,
Great's generals.
pretty much.
And
And
even worse, and I don't know if you're going to get to this, but I'm going to spoil it. Even worse, the Ptolemaic dynasty, they were more inbred than the Habsburgs for
yeah,
generations. There was
yeah,
no
kind of.
intermingling with the Egyptian locals.
There was no intermingling. And
She was straight up married to her brother.
kind of, yeah.
Not even kind of. She was.
Well, yeah. Getting some real Zoroastrian vibes here.
That divine blood.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun little fact for all you listeners. Uh, whenever you, the next time you watch 300, correct me if I'm wrong, but by that point, I believe the Persians had embraced Zoroastrianism. And among the things that Zoroastrians were known for, especially if they were members of the, upper echelons of society, was that, they were blessed by the Almighty, and that to keep that blessing, they sort of needed to keep it in the family. So, it's wasn't abnormal to have, this is my wife and my daughter too, and my other wife, her mother. And this, if they live long enough, oh, and this is my other wife, my granddaughter, also my daughter. It got a bit weird.
And these people, there's no like, how there's like one of the Habsburgs, and they're like, he had the tiniest brain I've ever seen, and his eyes were mush. Like that legend, right?
Hmm.
These people back then were just like built different. Like no one was ever been like, yeah, no, he was inbred. It was just a fact, and they're just like, yeah,
They tanked the incest.
t- t- they were just built different back then. Stronger genes.
Clearly. But going back to this, like we even have descriptions of Cleopatra, which highlight the fact that she had red hair.
Not even that. Not even people that like are illiterate, right? Let's not give them that excuse. There are surviving depictions, like pictures of like mosaics that were done of her.
Yes, like they're like,
Or
like
like coins.
I mean, it is important to put this into perspective. At the time period, Egypt was an incredibly wealthy nation. Um, what London was throughout, the 1800s is the hub of international trade. That was Egypt then. There is a lot of documentation about Cleopatra, but for some reason, Netflix said, "No, we're going to screw all that and go with our feelings on the matter."
Nubian queen.
Yes, you're going to make her Nubian as opposed to Grecian. But yeah, this is just another case of, oh look, we're going to portray history incorrectly in the name of political correctness. And that makes no sense. It makes no sense at all.
Also, didn't the actual nation of Egypt sue Netflix over this depiction?
Yes, yes, they did. Yes, they have. For billions of dollars, because Egypt has some because so much has been put out about Egypt that is incorrect over the years regarding their history. The nation of Egypt actually has pretty strict laws about portraying their history incorrectly. So if Netflix is available in Egypt, which it is, then Egypt can sue them. And I think it's to the tune of billions of dollars that they're suing them for. It's something absolutely ludicrous.
Isn't this like crazy that I guess this maybe leads into, what you want to talk about, but like Netflix, will just if it gets proven in court, right? Which you'd think it would be.
It's pretty
It's
obvious.
pretty cut and dry. But, like Netflix is just like, yeah, we did it on purpose. We knew that we could get fined.
Yeah, I this is the case. Companies make these kinds of decisions, and they seemingly like you have to be blind to not recognize the consequences at this point. And you know, some of that in this I can blame on actors. Like for example, just like this, I guess look at, any kind of award show. At this point, it basically the comedy of the night largely boils down to be like Democrat good, Republican bad, to
Hmm.
be very simplistic with it. That is what it is at this point. If and you have actors that was it one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, Johnny Depp famously came out and said, if you're a Trump supporter, don't come watch this movie. And apparently they took heart of it and it underperformed. I mean, to an extent, I can blame actors for some of this stupidity, but repeatedly making the same mistakes on a corporate level when you have to okay things, this seems really, really bad.
It
Like,
just
this
seems
is the
like
kind of
negligence.
it is. And I'm going to touch on negligence, but oh, Lord. My question is like with these historical things, especially where it is intended to be historical and it is marketing itself as historical. I mean, maybe it's just me, but if I am watching something that is intending that I am expecting to, within reason, you're going to have your suspension of disbelief because it's obviously trying to be entertaining.
Hmm.
But in those cases, like the bizarre ethnic diversity, like breaks goes beyond what that suspension will do just because it's so illogical. Um, do you, do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, it's not that it. I mean, obviously, it brings you out of your immersion, right? Especially if you know, like,
Yes.
at least a cursory level of like what's going on already, and you just like kind of want to see it dramatized, right? But it also just brings up in your mind, like, okay, what else did they get wrong if they can't do this right?
Yeah, it does highlight that. It really does highlight that. And but it presents something up front that is wrong in something where they are largely supposed to do things true to form historically,
Hmm.
which I think that is another thing that hurts them. Where I agree with the sentiment on that. Like, oh Lord, what is his name? Give me a second, Colton. Fun fact: I'm a big Shakespeare fan.
Thank you for the fun fact.
Uh, Kenneth Branagh. Um, Kenneth Branagh did a series of movies for the BBC based on Shakespeare's work, and they have a rather diverse cast. But it's Shakespeare. I'm watching it for the story, not the historical immersion, not the historical aspects of it. And that's perfectly fine. But when it's something where it's like trying hard to be historically accurate, or it's claiming to, try to be historically accurate, it just doesn't sell. I think that puts my thoughts a bit more into perspective. But
So,
in all of, oh,
uh,
go ahead.
well, I was gonna bring up a new show that has come out like within the past week. That is a historical show. It's a historical drama, right? And
Hmm.
for the most part, it's not doing any of that stuff. It's a faithful retelling of its original story, and it's
Oh,
performing very well.
what is it?
It is a reshooting of James Clavell's Shogun.
Oh, interesting. Is that being handled by a Japanese firm?
No, it's American. It's like it's on like
Really?
FX or some shit.
Really?
Yeah,
That's impressive.
and it has like remarkably good reviews and like people, high rating.
Oh, and I guess it skips all that stuff.
Um, I mean, I've decided to not watch it because of like one of those issues, but it doesn't do any of like the racial stuff or anything. Like the show's fully like in Japanese. Like if you know the story of Shogun as it should be in Japanese.
I
You know,
got some feedback. Would you repeat that?
um, like the show is like if you know the story of Shogun, it's like fully in Japanese. So like it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? So like they're doing all that.
Hmm.
They're not doing any of the racial stuff or anything. It's just literally the story Shogun.
Nice.
But I
That,
mean, there
that's
there
hard
is
to
a
find.
yeah, there is a like one change that they did. At least they showed it in like the trailer for when it was coming out, and it made me like go like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it." But it has nothing to do with that stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, in these cases, when producers, directors, and whatnot are called out for things like this, do you think it is? We've seen a lot of this where companies claim that the fans are toxic.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, do you think it's wise to call your paying customers toxic?
No, just no, like no.
You sure? Because a lot of people are doing it.
It's a really famous example of this in the video gaming. This was like recent too, like within the last few years.
What was it?
The Last of Us games. from on like the PlayStation.
Yeah.
You know
Oh,
exactly the
yeah.
controversy I'm talking about.
I know that you couldn't escape that controversy. I'd never even played Last of Us, and I had to controversy.
And it's funny because the producer of the game, like the director, his name is Neil Druckmann. He like said those words exactly.
That sounds like a poor choice.
Yep.
Is he still employed?
He is still one of the heads of I think the company's called Naughty Dog.
Oh, yeah. Then so patterns are holding. People make poor decision, keep job. Maybe failing upwards isn't just about politics, Colton.
Mm, maybe.
Maybe you can fail up in any career.
Well, it's weird because The Last of Us One was a really good game, and then controversies aside from two, like he obviously did something right, and then he just decided to just shit on it.
Kind of. So now I guess at the end, where we're coming, at the end of these three topics, where we've sort of, discussed examples. But at this point, we kind of got to discuss motivation. I mean, would I be right? I mean, I guess the saying is, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing again and again and expecting different results. So, does it seem to you as well that the entertainment industry has collectively lost their damn minds?
Robert, that implies that what they view, as lost profits are bad. What if this is the intended result? I can't even understand their motivations.
I am so confused. I mean, there like honestly, if we went into like things like Star Wars, hell, even the recent Indiana Jones, like Lucasfilm is like the focal point for a lot of this. And again, like that warrants Disney as a whole warrants its own video. There's just so much to unpack there. But that being said, this is a pattern across the industry as a whole, it seems.
Across multiple industries.
Well, yes, multiple industries. Even ones that until before we were planning to record this, I hadn't even thought of. I mean, we knew that, you had the PC mob coming in and interfering with AI. We didn't know they were spending, hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars to get a say to try and mess with other people's AI.
It's just mind-boggling. Eh,
Like what? Like,
what's the end goal? What do they want?
like, I, I'm looking at this as, if I am an investor in a major corporation and that company donates $1 billion to remove the anatomy training from an AI, what the hell am I investing in? Where is my return on that?
It's like if you just take the logical conclusions from like everything, right? Like across AI and video games, like the no attractive women, it's like okay, why? Like, what is the end goal of that? Do nothing? Like, just look at men in skimpy outfits. Like what? It's weird. It's just like demoralization or something. Like, what is the end goal? It's not a better product. It's not something that more people are buying. It's less people.
Yeah, it's so strange. And, I've got some ideas for this. And this is all really hard to, point down because there are things in here that are done, as there are things. It's a hard topic to address because you actually do have two sides coming at this. You have to an extent, you have the religious like right that wants to see that is opposed to certain things for propriety reasons. And then you have the left coming at it from the other side for inclusivity and diversity reasons. And some of these decisions are obviously not based upon that. Some of them may be artistic decisions. Some of them may just be, oh, I hired my buddy. Some of this, like, there are a lot of things. And I mean, I guess it's possible that all of them are just flukes, but forgive me for, recognizing a pattern and not.
Yeah, and that can even be applied to the AI thing. It's like, the big Taylor Swift controversy of like the deep fakes, like maybe they don't want their name associated with that anymore, right?
Maybe
And it could just be like an overcorrection.
it could be an overcorrection, but I've got some possible thoughts on this. And the first one I am going to throw out because we only really touched on it with the video game segment, but that's cancel culture. And that has become kind of significant. I mean, if you have a TV show, let's say, and there's ads running during your TV show, and this is most frequently associated with the left doing this. So I don't really know offhand of a case of the right doing it. So forgive me. Uh, I don't follow a lot of this stuff so much, but just again, there might be cases for both. I don't know. Like for example, what was it? You had, I guess it was Tucker Carlson, who pissed off the left wing mob to the point where they were calling people that ran commercials during his show, stating that, hey, look, you're supporting what he says. So if you don't remove your commercials, I'm not going to buy your product.
I don't think they were a lot of the intended market for. Have you seen the ads on Fox News?
Yeah, I have. They're special.
Oh yeah,
But
they are prime central to try to get your grandma to waste money.
exactly. I mean, that's more or less who watches Fox News.
I mean, if we're
But
calling
still,
boycotts cancel culture, though, I mean, you could say like the Bud Light thing or that's an example of
yes, that is a
Republicans.
good one. I had completely forgotten about the Bud Light thing. That is a wonderful example on the opposite side, where it's just like, no, we're not buying your product. Although that's them stopping buying a product versus contacting people who it's not exactly the same thing
Hmm.
in that regard. So I guess to an extent it is. And I mean, I get actually Doritos recently hired someone as their spokesperson in Spain that had said some very questionable things as it related to young girls, I guess.
Um, I, I think very questionable is an understatement.
Yeah, yeah. But guess you're familiar with that then. I'm not going to repeat what they said. You can look it up if you want. But suffice to say, not exactly the kind of person you want promoting your product,
No, and the thing is
regardless of
that,
any
it,
lifestyle choices.
yeah, it's weird how it's like not an issue until someone complains. It's like, how would you hire someone that said that? You know,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say a lot of horrific things. And
true. I
but
mean,
still,
not like
I
that
get the
one though.
feeling. I mean, yeah, that's a bit much. Uh, but anyway, I think cancel culture plays some role in it. And I think to an extent, a part of that is that the left seems a bit more trigger happy with it. And so, how to put this? So, like, you know how in the film industry, companies will pay to get a product featured in it?
Yeah, like Hawaii 5 and Subway.
Yeah. Or, basically every chain restaurant ever in the first Jurassic World of the new series, if you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
They even had a cameo of Jimmy Buffett in a Margaritaville. Yeah, but I can see, like, maybe putting like maybe doing it to try and draw in companies that are concerned about cancel culture. But I don't think that's the case, but maybe. I mean, it's money, but at the same point,
Same point, they're also not concerned about losing money.
they're also not concerned about losing money, at least not in a box office. Next up, the one that companies keep citing is market expansion. And I'm actually there's actually a good point to make here. We live in a day and age when, taking a product to market globally, I mean, it can be hard to, get into China, but globally, it's not all that difficult. The world's economies are generally connected, and there are channels to pursue to get a product to market in other countries. Um, Actually, I'll throw out Eastern countries in general as being a bit more difficult because you're not going to see Brokeback Mountain playing in a theater in Saudi Arabia,
No.
but within the West generally, you a lot of companies have sort of reached a cap. They are at a point where, like, look at Disney. You are going there. There are people that know who that know what Mickey Mouse looks like, even if they don't know Mickey Mouse's name. And so you can have product placement everywhere. Uh, you can have your logo everywhere hire good enough translators, and you can market online within 24 hours in basically any country you want. And the market expansion thing that companies throw out sort of falls flat to an extent for that reason. Um, well, not necessarily it falls flat. I mean, there's a logic there, but my question is, and I don't have numbers for this, by making something inclusive and diverse, is it marketing to that? Is it actually generating meaningful results among that audience to draw in and make them consumers of your product compared to the market that is being lost by candidly forcing it in?
I know in the gaming market, at least, it's not like they don't bring in any of the crowd they're trying to cater to.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. But that's what they normally cite, how, we're trying to, expand our audience. But that after 10 years of that, it looks like they're losing more customers than they're gaining
Yeah.
in these efforts. And like one that I actually have to take very seriously in a theory for this is corporate sabotage. Like, is there a sincere interest in destroying certain franchises?
Yes.
Like, it seems that way. But again, even the people that would be destroying them, their lifeblood is that industry.
Parasites.
So, I mean, corporate sabotage is usually another kind of, put somebody in to make stupid decisions on your behalf. So, unless everybody's really good at corporate sabotage and has managed to, get people into places where they can't be fired to screw over all their competition, well, that doesn't seem likely either. But like that should put in the scale of how bad this is into perspective a bit, I think. One that I will throw out that I think is, you know, a real problem is media hysteria. Like, and let me put this into perspective a bit. Colton, imagine if you would that you have produced a film and you are inviting people from the media to come in and review your movie before its release.
Hmm.
You are you want these people to think highly of you, so they give you good reviews. Even if it's game, for example, you give them a review copy. Whenever they come for this event, you wine and you dine them. You make this event exclusive, and you are, and what you are doing in a sense is motivating them to say nice things.
Hmm.
And even though whether your product's good or not, you want them to give you positive reviews so you can get asses in seats for people to see that film. At the same point in time, those people like being wined and dined. They like attending those exclusive events. And importantly, in many cases, this is the media. They need, part of their work is to do those reviews. And if they give you a bad review,
You're not going to invite him next time.
you're not going to invite them next time. So, yeah. So I think, now, what does that media company do when, they give you a glowing review so you get asses in seats and they get invited back, but your movie sucks? Like, these people are fighting for their credibility.
It's like the president, not president, the principal Skinner meme from The Simpsons. Is it me that's out
Ah,
of touch? Nah, it's the children.
yes. Uh,
Just blame
yeah, I
your
think
audience.
blame your audience, which I think that led to the term toxic fandom. And I think it's something where it worked for the media. So now you're trying to, now you've got, actors and actresses, directors, and other people within the industry sort of, embracing that, saying, you can't fire me. I did everything right. I'm, are you going to fire me because I made a diverse film? Because, I, did something morally right? Well, I think that might be the angle that the industry itself is playing, whereas the media is just trying to retain credibility. even though at this point they don't really have much in the review side of things.
I don't think I've seen an actual credible article on anything in like a couple years besides, that like everything nowadays is just like rage bait to get you to click out of anger at like what the headline says and then for it to just be an entirely mundane article.
Yeah. Uh, but this seems like, a case where at least that stance on things has fueled it, because you also have, a lot of the, I think it's safe to say that in gaming and film, a lot of the people that are writing reviews of that probably wish that they had what a lot of people would consider a more legitimate media career working in such things. Um, just because covering politics, quite candidly, is, I would say, probably the most lucrative reporting career with the most perks.
Hmm.
The
Yeah. I can see what you're saying. How like if you're like
So
a games
I
journalist, it's like bottom of the
yeah,
barrel.
kind of, yeah. And I'm not trying to slight people with that, but I think that you have a lot of people that, want to be journalists, and they want to report one thing, but they're stuck in another industry. So they apply their political slant whenever they are reviewing things.
I think the rise of the
And
opinion article is just it's caused a lot of this.
I mean, what I find hysterical, and I'll say this for both sides, believe it or not, you know, Rachel Maddow, Tucker Carlson, Bill O'Reilly are not news anchors. They may talk about the news, but they are pundits. They express opinion, not fact. And I think one of the greatest disservices to the American public is people, and I'm not saying everything they say is wrong, any of them, but you have people that listen to them and take what they say as the gospel. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I think that's part of I mean, that's almost like a trick that they play to make the news entertaining and more sensationalistic than it already is.
Yeah.
Now, the other cause I can think of in all of this, and I think it is the most likely, is investors, big investors. And there's been a lot of talk about this as well. Groups like Vanguard, BlackRock, all that jazz. Now, whenever you're looking at these really, really massive corporations, like Microsoft is huge, but Microsoft is huge because basically everybody uses their product. It's just a thing. But then you have, companies like Vanguard, BlackRock, Berkshire Hathaway, where these are publicly traded corporations, and they are publicly traded corporations that invest. That is their business. And so you are investing in a company to make investments. And how to put this? These are the kinds of companies where, let's say you happen to have let's say you're a state employee in California or really any other state. Whenever a political leader is deciding who is going to, handle the retirement funds for state employees, do you think it's safe to say they're probably going to look to a company that agrees with them?
I don't know. I mean, that could be a thing. I just think they're gonna go with like one of the safer options. And, those investment firms are too big to fail, too influential.
Well, yes, but don't you think they might be inclined to, cater to their benefactors? Because I mean, there is a big difference between, let's just say people talk about, oh,
Hello,
Bill
Robert?
Gates has a lot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's just say.
Oh, so let's just say that, you've got people talk about Bill Gates who, has a lot of money, or Elon Musk who has a lot of money. And these people do have a lot of money. Do you know who also has a lot of money?
The guy that
The
owns
state.
Berkshire Hathaway.
Well, well, yes, but I'm talking about the state of California, the state of New York.
Okay.
These are like this is a lot of money. Like landing that as someone who's going to do business with you is incredible. So, if the head of that state is inclined to is looking, they're jonesing for somebody to handle the retirement funds for the people of the state. Well, they are they are probably going to choose someone who they view as a political ally to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and then justify quality afterward. I mean, we've seen that again and again in the world of politics. I mean, Lord, they whenever they were negotiating who was going to produce rockets for the next moon landing,
Mm-hmm.
the federal government's negotiation resulted in procuring rockets from a firm that doesn't actually make rockets that go into low lunar orbit. So that's the thing. So they're sort of having to make do with a rocket that's not exactly designed for the intended purpose. But that's just politics. That's how these things work out. So, I mean, if it's coming into play for something as minor as a rocket, which relative to what we're talking about is a very insignificant amount of money, don't you think it would come into play when talking about who's going to handle, the state employee retirement fund?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you have had some of these groups come out and say that they encouraged companies to invest in to work toward things like diversity and inclusion. And you know I think that could be a very real causation for a lot of this, is who is investing and where. I mean, if a smaller company can do it by can buy product placement I'm pretty sure a company worth tens of billions has the influence to, you know, get some ideology included.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, and there is another one that we just have to throw out. And I think this is the last one we'll really touch upon. But that's just the fact that writers just aren't good anymore.
Seems like there's a lack of originality these days.
There is. Like I said earlier, like this year, we're going to see more films released that are sequels or reimaginings than new content, truly, genuinely new content, at least on the Hollywood side of things, which really begs some questions. Um, are we as are we as a people really that uncreative? Like, what the hell is going on?
I don't think so.
Can
Like,
are we really that bad of writers?
no, I think there's just a lot of you know, diversity hiring and nepotism hiring.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to throw this out as well. This is another one. Uh, you you've not worked for unions, but you've known people that work for unions,
Mm-hmm.
and in a lot of unions, once you hire someone, it can be kind of hard to get rid of them because of union guidelines. Do you think that essentially having these companies keep? Do you think that could play a role, essentially forcing companies to keep subpar riders?
Yes and no. I mean, wasn't there like famously like someone employed at Disney that they're like making a bunch of movies and they just got so sick of their work that they just paid them to stay home even like because they're contractually obligated to keep them employed?
Yes, to my understanding, that wasn't a rider though.
Yeah, same thing though.
To my understanding, there was actually an investigation in Kathleen Kennedy regarding where money was being spent. Uh, Apparently, she was pulling money from one project. She requested more money from one project to put into another.
Hmm.
So, I don't, I don't know if that is 100% accurate, but I have read
But yeah,
that
like
she
that
was under investigation for that.
same sort of thing though is what I'm saying. Like could be, you know, it's
But
easier
that's
to just
like,
do that than to upset the your entire, you know, union workforce.
yeah, and yeah, it seems like a lot of the stuff. Because I mean, these individual riders don't make too much of a political difference. But then you look at a union and the other organizations that are an ally of that union, and all of a sudden you can actually see some political.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't come into this really wanting it to wind up being a political thing, even though we're talking about political correctness. But it seems like the most logical results are all political, some kind of political motivation somewhere or rooted in it. Like, it's not the people creating the content that are being political. It is the people paying the people who want something done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean if we go by, you know, your thought process right there, then yeah.
Yeah, again, a lot of this is just hypothesis. Uh, I don't know everything, believe it or not. I wish I did, or actually, that would be horrifying. Life would be very boring. But anyway, I think we've rambled on long enough. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, I don't really think I have anything else to add.
Well, to you poor bastards still listening, thank you for doing so. And please share this video with friends on social media, or don't. I guess it's your call. But would like to help grow our audience a bit. And if there is a topic you want us to discuss, we would be happy to do so. So please leave some suggestions down in the comments. Take care, everybody.
Have a good one, folks.